All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. So hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for joining in here on this Sunday evening. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 20 or for 2 hours. Sorry, I'm a little thrown off. 2 hours or so here. I'll be giving priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who is a member. They have the priority answering there with the green usernames. And I see Two has started off the night with the first super chat here of the night. Thank you so much for joining in, Two. He says, I slipped out of the handcuffs early. Welcome to the basement. Still trying to get Matt to approve the script for the first basement stream, or maybe the cat ate it. Yes, Two has got a full like monologue ready to go of various basement lore and little things to do here. So we'll have to try and find a way to work those in someday. But we can keep working on those too, and and see how everyone continues to respond to the basement lore, and if everyone wants to keep that going. But thanks for joining in too. I see Jordan, Brian, Kyle, Raphael, Jazz, and Vishal, Luke, and Nick, and Slam Sedan. Thank you all so much for joining in. Really appreciate all of you for swinging by here. And all right, so let me see. Kyle says, I'm ready for Mazda to bring back the 6 with the success of the K5 and the Sonata. There are still fans of four-door sedans. I definitely agree. And I think we actually saw in the past couple of years that there's actually an increase in sedan sales, if I remember correctly, or at the very least, they have steadied and they haven't continued to drop. I think that we have seen the bottom of some sedan demand, and I feel like there's a chance for growth again. And I think, we will see how the new Camry does as far as that may be bumping up sales a little bit. We will see. I mean, Accord seems to be doing really well. So hopefully that, continues to do well. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my camera here. But, so I think that there is some real progress there. And I think if the car companies continue to do well with the right kind of sedans, and marketing them well, I think that there is a chance, for a Mazda 6 to do well again. And yeah, like you said, Sonata looks great now. K5, is doing pretty well and all that. And I mean, again, just all the others doing so well too. So I hope there is some reason there for Mazda to get back in with the 6. And let me see. Tude says sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Yet still have yet to accept a sponsorship from them. Although it seems like a lot of other people have, but still holding out. And Vishal says hello from Daytona Beach. That's awesome. Hope you're enjoying your time in Daytona Beach. And we were just actually having a little vacation in Florida here this week as well. And so it's good to be back though. Luke says I have to sleep in McKees Rocks PA tonight. Rough area. Funny enough, I grew up near McKees Rocks, so not far from there. And yeah, there's some rough spots there. I haven't lived there in a good long while now, but there's some nice spots as well. There's some good restaurants, still some good food, and some nice people as well. But definitely not one of the swankier parts of Pittsburgh, that's for sure. But hope your stay is good, Luke. And Slam Sedan says 2 is a real character to these live streams. Glad Matt has taken his phone away. What up, Big Matt? Thanks for joining in, Slam Sedan. And let me see. Jewel, thanks for joining in. And Sean says 3 questions. Where's Beth? Where's the cats? And give us the cats. So Beth is taking tonight off. Our daughter has a little bit of a cold, and so she has to be on standby there in case she needs her. So no Beth tonight. She's got to be a mom tonight. And cats are cuddling with Beth because they much prefer cuddling with her over me as well. But cats will be back maybe next week. We'll see. And Jewel says, just rented a Model 3 on Turo for a week today. I wanted to experience an electric car. Fingers crossed. Well, I hope you enjoy it. And I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on it next week, Jewel. And 2, thank you for another super chat. He says, sorry for the wait, folks. We were still untying the karate shop guy and convincing him he's Matt. For the stream, some say he only plays one game, and it's not Raid Shadow Legends. Yeah, I honestly, and actually doing a serious answer to your question too, the only video game I really play much these days is Mario Kart with our daughter. I don't really take time to game by myself anymore like I used to, but I'm still hoping to get back into gaming someday because I do miss it for sure. Let me see, getting back to the member questions here. Luke says, I'm delivering to Massachusetts on Tuesday morning. It's going to be cool to see so many different parts of the country and travel all over, with the trucking stuff. It seems like it'd be obviously very underappreciated, and you got to deal with all the crap on the roads. But I hopefully at least get to see some cool stuff. Vishal says, here in Daytona with the family for a week-long vacation. Love it so far. That's great. Glad to hear you're having a great time. And Sean's asking how McKees Rocks ranks compared to Compton and others. I don't know enough about McKees Rocks in 2024 to give an answer. Maybe Luke can give you a better response there. Samson answers, hey, Matt, I know you travel a lot. Are you used to flying and don't get nervous? Yeah, I don't really get nervous. I've never really been nervous about flying. I've always been pretty good about it. I've been nervous, with the Boeing stuff the past couple of years, but thankfully I only fly Delta now, and Delta does not have any of the crappy Boeing planes, only the older, reliable Boeing planes. So if I was flying any of the other airlines, though, that do run the MAX planes, then I would be a whole lot more nervous. But thankfully, Delta, as of right now, I think they have orders in for the new MAX 10 next year potentially, but it seems like even United's backing out of some of their Boeing orders. Hopefully Delta follows suit. I'd much rather fly in an old plane that's not as nice and noisier and all that, and have it at least get me there, than have some brand new plane that's having doors blowing off and flying out of the sky. So Boeing, they are really, in rough shape, it seems, and it's amazing that they are still functioning as a company. They should be buried in a million pounds of legal troubles and they should be flushed out of existence, in my opinion. But anyway, I'm not nervous otherwise. You hit turbulence, and there's been a few times where I've had intense turbulence and things like that make you a little nervous, and you just, hold on and hope that that plane and that pilot are top notch, but thankfully, knock on all the wood, everything has been pretty good. But I do like driving to some of the events if I can. If it's 5 hours away or less, I usually will elect to drive, just because honestly, by the time you drive to the airport, get there early enough to get through security and stuff, then you got to stand around, and then you board, and then you got to sit around and wait half an hour for everyone else to board, and then you taxi for 20 minutes, and then you finally take off, and then you actually do your flying time, and then you land, and you got to do the whole thing in reverse, basically. A lot of times for that, if it's 4 or 5 hours, I actually get there faster if I drive. So I do drive as much as I can. I wish train travel was better in the United States, because I love trains. I would love to do more train trips, but they're just far too slow and inconvenient, and they're not really any cheaper either. So, but yeah, thankfully I don't have to worry too much about flying. Delta has a pretty good track record. Again, knock on all the wood. But yeah, and two, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, let Raid Shadow Legends know you'll take their sponsorship, but for the basement stream. Yeah, that could be. We can have a Raid Shadow Legends stream in the basement. You can lead that one too, because I do not think that game would be for me. Austin, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, hey Matt, what's your opinion on used 500 Albarts? If you are someone who is concerned about reliability, the safe consensus is that they're not going to be the most reliable. Most of the people that I know that have had them, like Yuri from the Straight Pipes, has issues with his. I think Sub Kyle had some issues with his, if I remember correctly. And in the past, other people I've known have had issues with them. There was one acquaintance that I had that had a 500 Abarth that seemed to have pretty good luck with his, from just a little bit of information that I saw on that. But so it's going to come down to your personality type. Some people, they don't mind tinkering and having check engine lights or being stranded every once in a blue moon or whatever. If that is you, I think 500 Abarths are super cool. I love them. I really, really wish that they were more reliable than they are. But yeah, it's a shame because they sound so good and all that too, but they don't seem like they hold up super, super well. So If it were me and I was looking for something like that, I would probably go used current gen Mini Cooper, or I guess technically now the prior gen, most recent generation of the Mini Cooper S. And if you want to go John Cooper Works or something to make it a little spicier, you can go for one of those or something. I know they're a lot more expensive than a $500 BART though. But R56 and R53 minis are also kind of basket cases and luck of the draw there. So, it's kind of a tough market there, because anything else that's going to actually be more reliable is going to be a lot slower. That's kind of plays in that same kind of space there. So it's not a lot of options. So I wish I could recommend the Abarth, but I'd say I'd only recommend it to the brave. Everyone else, probably better to just admire them from afar. Thank you so much, Austin, for the super chat. And let me see. And back to the other member questions here. Nick says, just got an MGW shifter for my Bullet. Excited to drive with it. Nice. I've heard, I think, some good things about those. A lot of people really like doing shifter upgrades for the MT82s to help give them a bit of a better feel. Let me see. I'm going to try and do a few more non-member questions as well tonight, just to kind of mix in a little bit, because I know that sometimes it's just like basically straight member chat, and I love that, but I also don't want to ignore others completely. So I see Mike's also asking, do you think consumer demand will be as high for electric trucks as it is for electric crossovers within the next 5 years? I feel like electric trucks have a limited appeal because of who you're marketing them to. There's only, not to talk in stereotypes, but truck buyers typically are not going to be the type of people to jump for an EV. And so I think that you'll see that there's going to be a stronger wall of resistance for electric trucks than there is for electric crossovers, electric sports cars, whatever the other ones you want to pick segment wise. I think electric trucks is going to really have that real high hurdle of, okay, we have exhausted the small percentage of truck buyers that are open to an EV, and you're probably going to take a while before you convince many more beyond that to go for that. So I feel like electric truck demand is actually more of a short-term thing. I think, Ford cashed in with the Lightning, Hummer cashed in, maybe GM will get a little lucky with a few of those. Rivion's done okay so far, but, I think, I feel like they have the market pretty well covered already, and there's not a whole lot of room for new entries outside of maybe mid-sized trucks. People haven't tapped into that market yet, really, for EVs, so maybe they can get, a few more sales there. But if I were, the full-size electric truck manufacturers, I would basically not be counting on that to be a long-term growth strategy. I think that's a thing to fill that niche in the market, but don't expect, a ton of growth there, because I think it's gonna be a lot slower growth than the other electric segments. And let me see. Getting back into the other member questions here. So Luke says, it's pretty run down as far as McKees Rocks from what I see, but luckily the place I sleep is right under the McKees Rocks Bridge in a gated trucking terminal. Okay, well, that should definitely help you for sure. I think I actually know where you're staying. I did some driver's ed down there back in the day. Let me see. PK says, I hate the new Q6 interior we talked about just in yesterday's weekly update. Yeah, it's they're going for more screens. It seems like there's a couple more buttons than the Taycan, at least, in the electric Porsches, but still, yeah, I kind of like the idea of the Audi having the a more button interior in the Porsche. I guess it should really be the other way around from a company philosophy. You think Porsche would have more switches than Audi, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't hate it myself, but I can certainly see the I guess hesitation for the screen overload. It is certainly something that I think may end up reversing and going backwards. And we're already seeing like Hyundai and others saying, hey, we want to bring in more switches and more knobs and buttons again, and we realize like we can't throw everything in the screen. And I think maybe other companies will realize that as well, just maybe a little bit slower. We'll see. Let me see. So Raphael says, I've only flown 4 times and each was the greatest thing ever. Wow, that's crazy. I'm glad they were enjoyable experiences for you. But man, that is, yeah. I mean, I guess there's a lot of people that, just don't have a lot of needs to fly. It's just crazy. I've been on a plane how many times just in the past month? It's a lot. I mean, it's great though, because I can fly for free with all the frequent flyer miles I rack up and stuff. But yeah, it's I spend a lot of time in airports, a lot of time on planes. Um, okay, Sean says if the mileage is in the 5 digits, a mechanic gives it a clean bill of health and the price is below 14 grand, go for it. Interesting. Well, thank you for the insight, Sean, on the $500 bar. That is good to hear. And because I want them to be solid. I want them to be reliable because I secretly kind of want one as well. So that's good to hear that, they might actually be not bad as long as they're under 6-figure mileage there. Thanks for the info, Sean. Slam Sedan says, I'm traveling to Mexico in May and just going to drink a good amount of tequila before my flight. Okay, yeah, well, I guess there is a lot of nerves about flying, and I guess it makes sense these days. Yeah, just you can also, by the way, if anyone else has the same fear of Boeing as I do, you can always, when you're booking flights, typically it'll tell you what plane you are supposed to be on. Now, there's no guarantee they won't switch planes in the last minute or if there's an issue or something. But you can avoid the MAX planes most of the time if you know where to look on the site and stuff. But just for PSA for anyone out there that is having flying anxiety right now and doesn't know that, you can kind of pick and choose the actual aircraft you're on most of the time. And Sean, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, Hola, no luck on the search for the purple Geo Metro convertible, but have the itch for a motorcycle and scooter, still trying to convince the wife that a Can-Am Riker is a good investment. May take a minute. I don't know anything about those, so I don't even know what that vehicle looks like. I'm way out of the loop on anything that is out of the ordinary 4-wheeled stuff. But best of luck convincing the wife there. I'm sure that is going to be a tough sell because I think this, at least from the little bit I've heard, it seems like those kind of things don't hold their value super well, and obviously aren't going to be super passenger friendly probably either. But good luck on that, Sean. Thank you so much for the super chat. And let me see. So Tony says, hey, man, hope you had a great weekend. Thank you. I did. Hope you had a great one as well, Tony. And Austin says the 500 oozes personality. It really does. It sounds so good. It's so cool and fun. The only thing I remember when I test drove one, and I did do a review on one a long time ago, if you haven't seen that one and you're curious. But the one thing I remember is that the driving position I don't love. So maybe depending on what your body type's like, it might fit you better than it fit me. But for me, like, it was putting a bunch of pressure on my thigh, which is kind of an awkward angle with the pedal placement. So, definitely test drive one before you pull the trigger and make sure that it actually is something that you enjoy sitting in and driving and all that. But they're awesome little cars. Slam Sedan says, hey, Matt, this morning I revisited your 300C SRT8 review. I get tempted to buy one since they're around 10 grand right now. Nice. I feel like that's a solid buy because, if I'm going out on a limb here, again, not investment advice or anything, but I feel like 300C SRT8s have a potential to appreciate. I'm kind of surprised they haven't appreciated already, to be honest, especially now that we're seeing, the sunsetting of the 300C and all that. I don't know. I feel like that's probably the bottom for those as far as pricing. I don't envision those things getting any cheaper ever, and I feel like there's a good chance those could go up in value. I could be wrong, but if that's something that you're into, not to be the bad influence here, but if that is something that you are tempted by, I would venture to say that is probably going to be a solid buy from an investment standpoint. And it's also just a really fun car. But if you also are looking for something that's not going to lose money, I think that one actually has a potential to make you some money down the road potentially. So best of luck if you do go on the search for one. Jordan says Universal Latino released a Dolby Atmos digital version of Selena's 1994 best-selling album. Do vehicles support enhancements via Bluetooth or depend on vehicle sound system setup? So as far as enhancements, that is one of the things we're seeing with some of the newest cars is that they do over-the-air updates, and that can help not only keep the whole infotainment system and stuff up to date, but also the vehicle in general. You can do some actual vehicle recalls and things like that over the air, and that's really nice. Now, as far as via Bluetooth, there are still, like, you can do, I know, like, even in the Mustang, you can Sometimes there's like an infotainment update you can do on a jump drive and just plug it into the USB jack in the car and, manually install stuff that way. So it depends on the vehicle, but there are some where, the infotainment systems are even starting to lose their connectivity and their support already. Like a lot of the older touchscreens and stuff relied on like the 3G data network in order to do like live traffic updates and things like that. And the 3G network, like they were phasing it out for the automotive sector, and like just drop, like all those cars just no longer had that capability anymore and never will again. So there's those types of things, and we're going to see a lot of that, as we go into the future here of, how many of these things actually continue to be supported, which ones don't. And that's why it's a little tricky. This is why I love, still like the double DIN kind of setups you see in some of the older vehicles, because you can just swap in the latest infotainment system in there and you're set. I think it's going to really help those vehicles be future proof for a long time. But all these baked in systems that you can't really, yank something out of the dash, it's going to be a lot trickier to try and keep those up to date. But there are some companies that have been doing that kind of stuff of, swaps and just bolt in things where you can put it in. And I'm sure we'll see aftermarket stuff that'll rise up to fill that niche, down the road, if we start to see support drop off from OEMs for, some of that older stuff. And PK is asking, are you going to the New York Auto Show? I am not. I didn't have any manufacturer offer to host me this year. And when I have ever gone even to Detroit on my own dime in the more recent years, I'm talking like late 2010s, even back then, it was usually like a barely break even thing. So I lose money on the New York Auto Show if I were to go. So I don't go to auto shows unless car companies bring me. So no one offered to bring me this year, so I'm not going. And it seems like half the stuff already got revealed anyway. So, I mean, I know some people can kill it with those in-person videos of like, hey, here's last week's news, and now I'm going to still film a video on it and get 100,000 views. But at least just my audience here, I can't pull that kind of stuff off. It seems like if it's old news by even a few days, it just like falls flat and doesn't go anywhere. So it doesn't make sense for me, unfortunately. It was fun though. I've gone to the New York Auto Show many years in the past, and it's always been a good time. And I'm, a little bummed that I'm not going, but auto shows just keep shriveling up. And they, again, with these car companies they do it to themselves with these early reveals. It's like you saw everything last week. You saw all in this past week's update pretty much, so what's the point of showing up in person if we've already seen everything, again, aside from a few of those walk around videos, I guess, but there's nothing really radical there. I guess Infinity and the Nissan Kicks are the two biggest things, but outside of those, you got 2 walk around videos and that's it, but I'm glad other companies and other, YouTubers can make it work, but unfortunately just not for me. I see it. Great advice, Sean, about making sure there's a European mechanic or dealership with a service department with a good rating near you. Yeah, I guess you'll need that for sure with an Abarth. Either way. JT says, hi, Matt. Are you concerned about the value drop on your Mach-E? I've just taken a huge hit on my Tesla Model 3 performance. Yeah, it's not fun. So thankfully with a Mach-E, we did what was called the Ford Options Plan, which was basically a balloon finance purchase to get the tax credit, but it is set up like a lease. So we have the option in the contract to walk away from the vehicle after you could either do 3 or 4 years. We chose 4. After the 4 years is up, we can just walk away from it like a lease and, don't have to realize that loss. But for anyone who did actually buy a vehicle, yes, it really sucks. And I mean, even for us, like with the Mach-E, if we decide we don't want to keep it till 2026, we're basically married to the car until the value catches up, because since we did the basically a lease kind of thing, we didn't put any kind of big down payment on it. And so like a Mach-E right now, we owe 40 on it and it's worth 30. So we're 10 grand upside down in that car. Again, I don't have to realize that. So I'm not technically 10 grand upside down if I actually just, do the lease thing and dump it, at the end of the term. But, if I were to try and sell it right now or try and, get rid of it, I can't get rid of it pretty much, so that is the only thing that sucks about it. Thankfully, it's been good to us, knock on wood, for the most part, and there's no reason for us to get rid of it. But that's also something that I even talked to my insurance agent about recently was, what happens if this car gets totaled or something? Because, the car insurance companies typically only want to pay out what a car is worth. And I'm like, well, and with the options contract, since it is technically a purchase, I'm on the hook if, there's some type of difference there. And I didn't get gap insurance back whenever we got the Mach-E because, well, at the time I could have sold that car for a profit whenever we bought it, because we bought it at MSRP and they were still going for 5 or 10 over, even for used ones. So I didn't feel like I needed gap insurance, and I certainly didn't think that the value would drop as fast as it did. I mean, I thought, it's an EV, it's going to drop faster than usual, but I didn't think it would basically lose 10 grand over the course of a couple of months. That's really unheard of anywhere in the car world. So yeah, and you can't really buy gap insurance outside of at the point of purchase, or some states have it as an offer from your car insurance company, but Pennsylvania is not a state that really offers gap insurance, at least for State Farm, which is the company I work with. So thankfully, though, my insurance agent was like, they would look at that and they would most likely try to, cover it, and make sure that you can still just kind of walk away from the car. So, but that is one thing. If you live in a state that does do gap insurance and you don't have gap insurance already, make sure, if you are upside down on your loan, get gap insurance if you can, to cover, that gap, because you don't want to be caught, with your pants down because some idiot runs into you and then all of a sudden you got, this giant payment you need to pay just to get rid of your totaled car. That would definitely be not ideal. So, but I don't love it. Yeah. I don't love that it's dropped so fast, and it sucks that there's been this price war between Tesla and Ford and others. And, I feel like they can only do that for so long. Hopefully the values start coming back on those a little bit. But Mach-E sales right now are slow. So that's just the market doing its thing. And, that's, one of the things you sign up for, when you're one of these early adopters of these, high-tech things like EVs, there's going to be some of that. And so, I'm not mad about it, but it's certainly not great. And thankfully, again, this is why all these years I've been saying lease EVs. Do not buy them unless you're getting a crazy huge discount on them, because otherwise, you might get caught with bad depreciation. So this is why I'm glad that we didn't, do a traditional purchase on the Mach-E. And I'm very much validated in my reasoning now, seeing how everything is, dropping like a rock, and we'll see if it gets, back anytime soon. Let me see. Jazz says, Matt, have you checked car history on Beth's Mercedes to see where it's ended up? Not since I did the last Carfax video, which I think was last year. And yeah, it was just still around somewhere in PA, but I have not checked up on them this year yet. So it could be a fun thing to check in on and see. I really want to know where the Spec B ended up, because that vehicle ended up, I used to know the person that owned it, and then they ended up losing the car through a complicated situation, and so now it's in unknown hands, and that one I still am very much sentimental about. So I hope that one's still being treated well. So yeah, I may thanks for the reminder, Jazz. Maybe I'll go and stock my old cars again on Carfax here soon and see what's going on with all of them. And JT says, she's responding to Brianna saying cars are predominantly depreciating assets, and he says not when the drop of 50% happens in 12 months. Yeah, EVs are definitely out of the ordinary. It's even beyond regular EVs. You see how Leafs have depreciated, and BMW i3s and all that kind of stuff, for the really early gen EVs, but this is really unheard of with how fast Mach-E's and Teslas and many of the others. I mean, you can get an Ioniq 5 that's well equipped for 30 grand now used. It's insane. I mean, they're really good cars, and I've said in the past, if you are someone who's open to EVs, now is the time to buy used. Like, insane deals out there. Anyway, sorry, I missed a bunch of super chats. Sorry to keep everyone waiting here. So Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Tesla, Elon debuts caused major automakers to advance in EVs, and now BYD is pushing them into more affordable EVs. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we will see. It's an open market, and I'm curious to see how BYD, if they really put a fire under everyone's butt to finally get these cheap things out in the open, and finally get these affordable EVs out for the masses. I think it's great, as long as the BYD stuff is solid and it's not crappy quality and it's not, sketchy in any other way, then yeah, I mean, more competition. Competition always improves everything. So more competition, the better. And so, yeah, I'm interested to see that. But thanks so much, Jordan, for the super chat. Two, thank you so much for the super chat again. He says, serious question. It's rare, I know, Kyle. Go play your raid. Did FCA miss their chance to make a new gen Charger and Challenger years ago? I would have used the Julia platform to make a CTS fighter. So, I have heard that the reason that they actually had a running mule of a Julia with a V8 for like some type of Charger Challenger thing many years ago, but that platform can't handle a V8 supposedly. It just was apparently that did not have the rigidity they needed, and it was kind of like a wet noodle and just was not solid enough to go forward with. So I think they tried, and it wasn't feasible. Now, I think they've actually played Charger and Challenger right, in my opinion. I think, people, especially people that, were those fans of those vehicles, they love the old school nature. They didn't care that it was on a super ancient platform. I think that you saw, right towards till the very end here, sales went out on a high note. They were higher than they've ever been for Charger and Challenger, pretty much. They were right there. I think they actually a couple of times surpassed Mustang sales at various points. They really came back roaring, and their marketing was fantastic, and just the cars are fantastic too. So I think Dodge didn't do anything wrong with that last gen platform, and we will see how this new one fares. I think it might be a little bit of an uphill battle after the early adopters for the electric one comes, but I think with again the gas one coming next year, I think that there's going to be a lot of people that'll be like, yeah, I still want a V8, but this turbo 6-cylinder is also really awesome, and I like the new car or whatever. And I think that you will have a lot of people that turbos. Enthusiasts used to like turbos, and I think a lot still do. And so, you tell a Charger or Challenger fan, hey, look, you're already starting with more power than the regular V8 already had in the past, and it's probably like a tune away from huge power. Whenever, people can act like, oh, I love my V8, but, if they're actually people who genuinely want to go fast in a straight line, the turbo is going to be the better choice. Like, it's going to be better. The EV is going to be better still, but, even if that's a bridge too far, the 6-cylinder is going to probably be better. Look at the insane, inline 6 motors we've seen, the Supra's motor, the BMW's motor. I'm talking 2JZ for Supra, but, and also the new Supra. That motor, they're all inline 6 turbos are really good motors for power and for modding and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what the ECU situation is going to be like with the new Charger. I'm sure it'll be locked down and stuff, so it might be hard. But if someone can crack it, I think that it's going to really come down to how many people actually care about winning drag races and actually care about smoking people at red lights. And there's going to be a line in the sand between people who actually chase performance and people who just are going to be like that. Well, I don't care that I'm slow. I got my V8. And that's fine. I'm one of those people that loves my V8 as well, but it's going to really kind of, I think, separate the Dodge fans, into two separate groups. I think it'll be interesting. But anyway, thanks for the super chat too. Sean, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, kids always get gapped no matter what, just in case. Yeah, well, I've learned that lesson now. It was just, it was one of those things. I guess it was an unknown enough to the point that I should have just done it anyway, just be on the safe side. But I've had it in the past, but I just figured, I got a car that's worth more now than it was whenever I bought it and all that. But it's good advice. Get the gap insurance. Kevin, thank you so much for your first super chat here. He says, would an Integra CVT be a good choice for someone in their 20s looking for their first luxury car, budget of 35 grand? I think that the Integra is a great car. I haven't driven the CVT version, but I have driven the CVT with that motor in the regular Civic, and it was actually really good. I like Honda CVT with that turbo motor. It's a good pairing. It does a pretty good job mimicking a regular automatic, and it's pretty good. I actually have been on the hunt though for an automatic Integra, because I really think Integra sales are actually doing really well. Like, a ton of people are buying Integras, and no, I don't think anyone's really reviewed an automatic Integra. All the press fleet ones were manuals, which I love manuals and stuff. Obviously, that'd be my choice and all that. But for the mass amount of people out there that just want an automatic, I think that's definitely. Sorry, my watch is being weird. I think there needs to be more reviews on automatic Integra. So I'm hoping to get my hands on one as well. But if you're looking to buy, sooner than the next few months here, I think it would probably, based on what I know about that powertrain and that setup, I think that would hopefully be a pretty good choice. And also it'd be, pretty reliable and all that. So I think that would be, I think that'd probably be my top pick for something as far as a budget luxury car that's not going to kill you on maintenance costs and servicing and reliability and stuff. Because with the German entry level stuff, probably not terrible. You probably got a good 5 to 7 years out of all those before they start to, nickel and dime you outside of the regular expensive scheduled maintenances. But, I feel like an Integra would be a better buy, and I'd probably rather have that too. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you so much, Kevin, for the super chat. And Slam Sedan, thanks for being a member for 10 months now. He says CT5E Blackwing for YouTube content. Oh man, now you're just pushing my buttons, Slam Sedan. Absolutely, I would love to if I could afford to. But yeah, and I honestly feel like that the ship has kind of sailed with Blackwing as well from a content standpoint. If you're not one of the first to get it, just do a ton of content in the first year. After that, I feel like it's not as hot, and you're better off just jumping ship to whatever the new hot thing is for the year. But man, if I could justify one in any world, I would certainly love to. But and also thank you so much for the super chat. Slam Senasis, thanks for all your hard work, Matt. Thank you for watching and for all the support and for all the generosity. I really appreciate it, and I hope you can get your Blackwing as well. I know we talked about that in the past. I sincerely hope you can make that happen for yourself as well, because the more smiling, happy people driving Blackwings out there, the better off and happier the world will be. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, question for diehard sci-fi fans. The 2005 adaptation of Aeon Flux, actual benefits of solar-powered blimps above clouds and skyline, powering EV chargers are nonetheless. You have completely lost me. Unfortunately, I'm not a sci-fi fan, at least not that hardcore. I've never seen or even heard of that. I am completely out of my element there. I apologize, Jordan. As far as the idea of solar powered blimps, though, powering EV chargers, that could be, that's a fun, creative idea to, if there's places where it's prohibitive to set up an infrastructure with, wiring and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that could be something. That you really got me stumped on that one. But yeah, it'd be cool to do something like that. It'd be interesting to see how they build out the EV infrastructure in the Midwest and all that. I'd love to see, even like West Virginia is like still a total dead zone pretty much as far as EV chargers if you not have Tesla connections. Thankfully, I guess now with the Mach-E and stuff being able to use Tesla chargers, I guess West Virginia is not quite as much of a dead zone as it used to be now, but yeah, some of these states are really refusing pretty hard. So maybe just dropping in solar powered blimps to power EVs would be a nice, fun workaround. Very interesting idea. Thanks, Jordan, for the super chat. And let me see. So getting back to the member questions here. Let me see. Sorry, Beth's in there jamming out. Someone on the phone, so I was just thrown off by that. Let me see. So, where was I here? Thanks for the support and the likes, everyone. I appreciate it. So Cam Jam says, I noticed that a base Camry has about the same horsepower and torque as the 2.4 TLX, yet they have around a 1.5 second 0 to 60 difference. Does the transmission make that much of a difference, or was Acura underrating? I think it might come down to maybe how those motors are tuned, because obviously they're different 2.4s with the Toyota and the Honda. So I'm not sure if maybe just one makes power a little lower in the RPM band, and that could be part of why, maybe one rips a little bit harder off the line. Also, weight has something to do with it as well. So I not sure if it's a base Camry or the Acura that has the faster time. But if it's the Camry, then I would say that that's probably due to the fact that it's got a little less weight going for it. Could be some of that helps. Also, the transmission, could be a big difference as well. Those are all valid things. There's a lot of different things. Honestly, even 0 to 60 times can come down to tires. If you have one car that's got a fuel economy tire on it and you got one that's got a grippier tire, I mean, that could actually make a big difference on its own. So there's a lot of those types of things that, can influence the 0 to 60 time, even if, the specs on paper look pretty close. But that's a very interesting question. And I could do a little more research into that once I'm done with the live stream here, because I'd be curious. I've never seen a difference that large, though. That's pretty interesting. But anyway, moving on here, I see Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says Stellantis is laying off roughly 400 U.S. salaried employees in its engineering, technology, and software organizations to cut costs. Is this a bad thing? I don't know. It depends on where they're cutting and why they're cutting. But I think a lot of corporations have a lot of overlap and a lot of waste as far as just maybe there's some of it where they are stretching people thinner and they're making two people or one person do the job of two and things like that. So it might be something like that going on. I have no clue. It's really hard to say without knowing the inner workings of the company as far as why they're doing that and how that's going to affect the others. So yeah, I think also, with some of these, with all these platforms being these common shared platforms and, the electric motors being, pretty shared and, common amongst many of these Stellantis products and stuff, there might also just be a little bit less engineering to do, potentially as well. I know you said software and technology stuff as well. And that's also another thing where, it used to be you had more unique implementations across a brand. And now it seems like, most companies just have the same software, same screen sizes, same screens, same integrations across multiple vehicles. So again, maybe a little less work there to be done than in the past. I'm not sure. It's really hard to judge, from the outside looking in here. But it's certainly could potentially be a bad sign if, you're spreading people thinner than before with the same workload, just one of those things that, could definitely go badly. And it's something I know a lot of companies love, that idea of like, hey, let's just like burn everyone out, but we're saving a few bucks. And, that's something that's very common in corporate America. So I could see that being the way that is going as well. I don't know. But thank you again, Jordan, for the super chat. And let me see. So Sean says the Can-Am is a scooter with two wheels in the front, making it a three-wheeler. Hardcore bikers hate it, but it's easy to ride and won't tip over. Gotcha. Okay. The three-wheel things always make me laugh. Especially, I know the Can-Am is different than like the three-wheeled Harleys and stuff, but every time I see one of those three-wheeled Harleys with people looking like all tough, driving those things, it always just makes me laugh, because it's like, I don't know. Again, I'm glad everyone has different tastes. Everyone likes different things. So, it's, who am I to judge? But it's so funny to see people that like think they're like really tough and mean on essentially a powered tricycle. That makes me laugh for sure. The Can-Am thing is kind of cooler with the two wheels in the front. It makes it a little more unique there, and a little sportier, but as long as you don't take yourself too seriously, like the Harley folks do, it's hopefully, it'll be a fun time and you won't have any people giving you crap for it. And Sean says, with a Can-Am, I wouldn't need a motorcycle license. Though it probably wouldn't be a bad idea just to have the experience and the training. Interesting. I didn't realize, that you could get around that with the three wheels. I know nothing about that world, so I will just shut up before I say anything. Makes me look even stupider. Brian says, random question. Whatever happened to the TV you used to use? Did it get repurposed? No, just the TV thing didn't seem, it just was extra work to edit that, because basically the TV was at an angle. And so I couldn't just like on my editing software, just like drag and drop the image to superimpose it into that TV screen. So I had to, every time I would put a new image on there, and not every image is a different dimension, different aspect ratio. So, if one car is like a widescreen car, I had to crop it, and then I have to pin the edges to fit the TV screen perfectly. And it was just a whole thing. It was just a bunch of work. And also just when I moved to the new house here a few years back, there wasn't a great place to set up a desk or to really put the TV on these shelves because they're not as tall as that TV, and they're also not incredibly deep either. So just didn't really fit very well back there either. So that was another reason why I didn't use the TV. It is now just sitting in our basement. Maybe Tu's watching it, but it's just sitting in the basement and hasn't been used. Actually, that TV had never actually been used ever as a TV. It just sat as a prop in the old weekly update office there, and then just I don't think I've ever actually turned that TV on. And then now it's just sitting in the basement, and maybe it'll be there for a rainy day when we need another TV. Maybe someday if our daughter wants a TV and she's okay with a 720p TV from 2015 or whatever, she can use that. But but thanks for the fun question, Brian. I'm glad to see you have fond memories of the TV from the old weekly update office there. And Cam Jam says, Matt, do you think that Mazda would put the inline six in the new Mazda 6e with all-wheel drive, or just another 2.5? I think that they would do the inline six. I think that would help to drive the premium thing they're going for, and I think that I think they actually would put the inline six in most likely. And Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity, and glad to see everyone was able to grab those as well. And thanks, Kyle, every week for that. It really means a lot, and I appreciate it. Let me see. Jazz says, I know someone who had a gap problem when her leased Mercedes was totaled. She was upside down and owed money. Interesting, because I thought with leases, typically that was on the manufacturer or the car company, the leasing company, whatever, to handle. Maybe that has since changed, because we didn't have gap insurance on Beth's Mercedes either. And I mean, thankfully, neither of them ever got totaled or anything. But I was under the impression with those that if it gets totaled, like you just wash your hands of it and that's the leasing company's problem. But maybe not. So very informative tonight. I'm glad we're all helping each other to be informed about the perks of a gap insurance here. And Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, Chrysler and Fisker, who would you predict to succeed, including the possible Nissan partnership with Fisker? I mean, I think Chrysler actually has a good chance of success here. I mean, yes, right now they're looking kind of just weak because they just basically have Pacifica now. But, they said a refresh is coming for Pacifica. Pacifica still sells pretty well. And they have a bunch of stuff coming. I believe when I talked about in the weekly update a few weeks ago, they said I think the first one's coming in 2026, if I remember correctly. Then they said that the next ones are going to come in quick succession. So they're just going to be a bunch of stuff rolling out here in the late 2020s for Chrysler, and will hopefully fill out their lineup and hopefully have good products. So, but definitely I would put my money on Chrysler just for the simple fact that Chrysler's got 10 years of guaranteed life from Stellantis. Whenever Stellantis merged and did that whole thing, they gave every single brand in the Stellantis empire 10 years to, prove their worth, and then they will make that decision 10 years from whenever that merger happened, which was 2021, was it, or something like that? 10 years from then to say, okay, here's the ones that are still underperforming, let's cut them. And at that point, you might see a big culling of a bunch of Stellantis brands. But the ones that have proven their worth will stick around. And I feel like if Chrysler comes out with some solid products here, they could prove their worth and stick around, but there's a good chance they could get cut off. But I think Fisker is going to die off way sooner than Chrysler, even with a Nissan partnership, because Nissan's not on easy street either right now. So I think Nissan will certainly help if that happens, but I almost am worried that Fisker is just going to drag Nissan down even faster and further. But we will see. Thanks so much for the other super chat there, Jordan. And let me see. So Slam Sedan says, I love gap insurance. It would be a shame if my car were to get stolen. Yeah, it's I guess gap insurance is the way to go. I guess I was out of the loop on that one. Luke says, I'm planning on buying a midsize truck in the next 2 years. I like the look of the Tacoma, engine of the Frontier, interior of the new Ranger, and ride quality of the Ridgeline. Well, that is quite the conundrum. I mean, I'm a little biased because I just think the Ridgeline is really underappreciated still. But if you like the engine of the Frontier, I mean, the Ridgeline's pretty close. They both have big V6s that have been relatively proven. And the interior of the Ranger is certainly obviously a lot better than the Ridgeline from a screen size standpoint and stuff. So that's just a subjective thing. Same as looks of Tacoma stuff is also subjective there. But yeah, especially if ride quality is important to you, I'd say go for the slightly smaller screen on the Ridgeline, and go from there. I mean, what I can say also, I mean, obviously again, you got a couple of years before you buy, but I am going to be reviewing the new Ridgeline this late spring, and around that same point in time, I will also be reviewing the new Ranger, and I will compare it to the Frontier and all the competitors like I always do, and maybe that'll give you a little more clarity. I mean, they did do a little bit of an upgrade of the Ridgeline here this year. But if ride quality is important to you, I mean, you can't touch the Ridgeline. I mean, that is the only one. Everything else is going to be a far second place as far as ride quality goes. Even the new adaptive dampers and the new Tacoma, to me, didn't even get close to Ridgeline still. So I just go for a Ridgeline. If you're open to a Ridgeline, I think a Ridgeline is really great and a better truck than most people will give it credit for ever. And let me see. Two, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, Kyle, the basement is already full. Matt, we need the basement tier ASAP. Yeah, I mean, I talked about a while back doing a second membership tier, but I don't love the idea of ranking members as far as, because I mean, in these live streams, I would just want to make it a level playing field, for all members. And I can't really find any other justified reasons as far as extra content I could provide just because I'm so maxed out, or any other reason to, have a higher tier. I know a couple people have expressed interest in that. But for people who do want to add extra support, I would just say, the super chats, super thanks on regular videos, things like that are the way to do that, in place of having another tier to the memberships. But yeah, thanks so much too for another super chat there. And Sean, thank you so much for another super chat as well. He says, with automakers turning to more SUVs and CVs, is the Miata safe? I never see new ones on the road. An EV one might be cool, but might not work. Hybrid. Yeah, it seems like Mazda is definitely going to go hybrid before they go electric. It seems like electric Miata is a long way away. Probably not until solid state stuff becomes a reality. So, I would say hybrid is going to be the next step for Miata, and even that's going to probably be a little while before that happens. As far as is the Miata safe? I think if you're talking as far as, if they're going to discontinue it, I don't think so. Mazda is so passionate about the Miata that I think no matter what, unless Mazda went bankrupt, I think Miata will always stick around. It is a core thing for their identity. They have said it themselves. I think out of everything in the Mazda lineup, I think Miata is the number one vehicle for their brand identity, because the names of everything else have changed. The Mazda 3 used to be the 323, and 6 used to be the 626, and you had CX9, CX7, CX, now it's CX90s. That's always been fluid and changing, and that's fine. But the Miata has been the one constant and was really their huge claim to fame that has endured the test of time. And so I think Miata is going to stick around forever no matter what. So I think that we will see some type of mild hybridization, probably the same kind of 48-volt thing you see in the CX90 and stuff. They might try and adapt that for the rest of the lineup, down the road. And, they've talked about other hybrids and using Toyota technology and stuff. But for Miata, I feel like they're going to try and keep it as traditional as they can, just to keep it as cheap as they can, as light as they can. I think that you're going to see that vehicle will really be the bare minimum amount of electrification they need to do just to, meet whatever internal requirements they want or whatever. But I think Miata is going to stay pretty close to the original recipe until something forces their hand otherwise, which I don't think we're close to that for another decade or more. And thank you so much, Sean, for the super chat. Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, can we all agree that the Cupra logo resembles Pontiac? I have to take another look at the logo because I didn't take a good look at it this week when I did the weekly update. But from my recollection, I think I can agree, and maybe others can chime in on that one. But yeah, I'm excited about Cupra coming to the States, like I talked about in the weekly update yesterday. We will see how that goes for them. And, I'm always again about more competition is great. It's always fun to see new brands come and try and see what happens. I'm a little pessimistic about the potential of success for them, but I always wish every car company the best, and I hope they all can succeed. Italian Ice, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. He says, a certain other YouTuber has said the Honda Prologue is not great, probably because of the shared platform with the Blazer. Thoughts? Well, I have not reviewed the Prologue. I have not even sat in one. I don't think I've even seen one. I have seen one in person. That's it. But I haven't even sat in it. But what I know about it is, it has switchgear from a Chevy, and it's even not even from the Blazer. It's like worse switchgear than the Blazer. It's like using cheap, like crappier Chevy components. And the Acura does it as well for the ZDX, which really makes it less excusable for that. Because, you're talking about a $70,000 Acura with switchgear out of, Chevy Malibu or something. Like, that is, I don't know. I don't know which YouTuber you're referring to. I haven't been following Prologue coverage, but my personal opinion on the Prologue, again, without having driven it or even sat in it, Prologue is great if you want Ultium platform with CarPlay, because that is something, and that's what I've said from the beginning with Prologue, is it's awesome they kept CarPlay and Android Auto in it. And if that is something that is a deal breaker for you, like it is for me, by all means, if you had told me Blazer or Prologue, I'd say Prologue just for CarPlay. Like, honestly, even though Blazer looks cooler in my opinion, and I'm assuming Blazer will handle better because I think it has wider tires and stuff. But I would just go Prologue because I do not want to have to go back to not having CarPlay. It is really nice to have, and I refuse to use a phone mount in a $50,000 car or $60,000 car. So yeah, Prologue just seems like it's going to be an uphill battle. It's just kind of pricey from, at least my impression of it is it's a little too expensive. It's just, kind of rushed because of just not being fully Honda. I think the actual full Honda EVs that are coming here in 2026 or whenever, are going to be a lot more compelling probably. They called it the Prologue for a reason. I don't think the Prologue is going to stick around very long. It is literally a Prologue. It is the start just to have something electric to sell for the next couple of years. And then, it'll probably disappear, that was my guess. So it's just a gap filler, I think, for a few years. And so, it's just, I think it's going to be, it's also that platform, the way that I can go on a little rant, but I talked about this in my Blazer review. They're huge vehicles, and yet they have less, the Prologue has less cargo space than a CRV. If you are obsessed with EVs and you must have a Honda EV, even then I'd say just, get yourself a hybrid CRV or something and wait, a couple of years for the actual well done, Honda EV, most likely. Again, I could drive the Prologue and fall in love with it, but honestly, I haven't even requested the Prologue for my press fleet. They might be getting one in. I'm actually going to try and avoid reviewing it just because I honestly feel like, one, no one's going to watch it on this channel, and two, I'm probably just going to roast it, which is fine, and I'm happy to roast it. I'm not going to pull punches ever on a car, and if I end up having to be in a situation where I need to take that as one of my press vehicles for the week, I'll take it. But I just feel like it's going to be a waste of time because I feel like most of you probably aren't interested in it. So that's the main driver for skipping that one. But it's I feel like Prologue has got an uphill battle for it. And wish them all the best, but I don't think Prologue is going to go very well, unfortunately. And Ryan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, hi, Matt, do you have any recommendations for a fun to drive new car that's 30 grand or less, preferably with a manual that has standard active safety tech? Thanks. Absolutely. For 2024, the BRZ and the GR86 added the Subaru EyeSight system, which gives you adaptive cruise control even on the manual transmission as standard. Blind spot monitoring, you still got to go up to the upper trim, which is the limited for the Subaru and the premium for the GR86. But other than that, like everything else comes standard with all the active safety stuff, and they're right at 30 grand. I actually have seen a couple that have been slightly discounted off of MSRP already. So, and that's a manual, and dollar per dollar, that is hands down the most fun car to drive. That's around the 30 grand price point, in my opinion. So I would say absolutely GR86 BRZ. Miata also is getting a bunch of active safety tech upgrades here for 2024 as well. I have not reviewed that. I don't believe those are at dealers yet. They should be showing up here relatively soon. Excuse me. And so that's again right around 30 grand there. Has that active safety tech and a manual. So there's that one. Honda also has that. I don't recall if there was adaptive cruise in the Civic Si. That's another fun one for though, right around 30 grand. Not as fun as the rear wheel drive, little dedicated sports cars, but if you need something a little more practical, I would say Civic Si, could be a great choice. I believe you can still get a Mazda 3 hatch manual for around 30 still, if I remember correctly. So that could be something as well to look into. So if you're looking for new cars, those are my top recommendations there. And if you want to add extra context, feel free to also either just add another comment. I'll keep an eye out for your username, Ryan. Also, you can feel free to send me a message on Facebook or any other social media stuff that I have the links in the description of this live stream here. If you'd love to give me any extra context, I'll be more than happy to help you find a vehicle that you'll love. So thank you so much for the super chat there, Ryan. And Ben, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, hey, Matt, do you think Mazda will be successful as a near luxury brand, or will they have to accept that most people see them as a mainstream brand? It's a great question. To me, from what I've seen, at least Mazda's opinion personally is that they are doing a good job of doing the premium thing. Supposedly they're happy with CX-90 performance. They're happy with the perceived brand boost they're getting from it already. And that is, again, at least according to the rumor, has been the reason why the Mazda 6 has now been supposedly greenlit, is because they are feeling like they're succeeding with their premium transition, and they need to have a premium sedan to go along with their premium branding. And that is the main driver, even if they know it probably won't sell a ton and probably might not even make sense business-wise. If it's just an image thing that they need to do, then that is, part of why maybe they're doing that. So I think that they are, in their own mind, at least successful. In my mind, I think that they have made some progress, and I think that there are still going to be a lot of people that will see them as a mainstream brand for a long time. I mean, look at I get so many comments still from people that can't wrap their head around the idea that Hyundai and Kia make good cars now, and they just are still stuck in the 80s or the 90s when they were a lot sketchier. And they're going to have people that are going to be saying that for the next 20 years with Mazda, like, I had a $15,000 Mazda 3. They're charging 60 grand now for a sedan, or they're going to have that kind of stuff. So there's always going to be some resistance there, and people that don't see them as a luxury brand. But if the people who are open-minded enough to sit in it, to drive it, to experience it, and then experience the competition and the, entry level, lower rung of the luxury brands, I mean, it's going to be, it'll be a revelation of like, holy crap, like this Mazda is actually not really a mainstream brand on the inside here. This is definitely luxury branded and better than some luxury brands. Like I've said in the past with some of my Mazda comments in my reviews that, they have some stuff that honestly, in some cases, is just as luxurious as a Lexus, that is better than the Buicks or a GMC or, some of these other lower like luxury brands. Even some of the Cadillac stuff, I think the Mazda feels more premium than some of that currently, unless you go up to the actual high-end Cadillacs. But I think Mazda is doing a better luxury car than a lot of luxury brands are these days already, just with CX-90. And it's just going to keep getting better. Even CX-50 is, I think, punching above its class from a material standpoint. And so, yeah, I think that they will be successful. I think it's going to take time. And as long as they have enough money to keep them going in that pursuit, and they can continue to justify that platform, that engine, and all that, and all those things. I think that I think Mazda actually has a really strong, solid future. And I mean, they have their quirks and they have some weird choices and decisions, and I was annoyed about them resisting the touchscreen for CarPlay for a long time and stuff. They finally caved on that, but I think that they give a lot of thought to the details, more so than a lot of other companies, I think, and I think that will bode well for them, and it already has, and I think it will continue to I think make progress and continue to lift them above the average mainstream stuff. So yeah, it's been an interesting thing to follow here, and I'm excited for Mazda's future. Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat as well. He says Nissan Cube and Honda Element would be amazing now. Exceptional cabin room. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen those two make a return, especially the Element, because the Element has such a strong cult following, and everyone loves rugged, boxy stuff. I mean, that was like the Element was really ahead of its time. It's kind of strange it ever quit being a thing, but now, especially in the COVID era and now the post-COVID era, of people now really loving to go outdoors even more and all that, that's a real head scratch to me. I don't know why Honda didn't try and slap together something for a modern Element. I mean, literally just take a CRV and just put a new body on it. Like, I don't know. To me, that'd be an easy money printer. Again, it's probably, if there's car companies that ever watch these, they probably are pulling their hair out at my armchair, product planning over here. But it just seems like it'd be an easy money printer to just do something like that, even if it's just a phoned in job. I feel like that could be a really good idea. Nissan Cube, I think, also has a lot of potential, again, to, like you said, be something with tons of cabin room. And this is something like Hyundai. This is why when I was talking about the Santa Fe this past week in my review, they're really focused on a huge rear hatch space, and it's so much wider now and it's taller, so you can like basically camp in your Santa Fe. That is the idea. And the Santa Fe is great for that, but you can also do that same kind of thing in a smaller vehicle like a Cube or an Element, especially if you made a modern size Cube and Element, which of course means they'd add an extra foot onto the length and all that stuff. But like, I think that's a really good idea. And if I ever like went to work for one of these companies, I'd be like, hello, like, where is the Element? Like, who's asleep at the wheel here? Like, why is this not happening? That's got to be a solid business case. Way more than a prologue or something, like, where is the Element? I'm right there with you, Jordan. And the Cube is also really rare these days. I saw one just 2 weeks ago that had a bunch of funny stickers on the back of it, but I was like, holy crap, it's a Cube. This is awesome. I hardly ever see them anymore. And the one sticker on the back actually is the first time I've had a sticker make me laugh out loud in a long time. And it was one of those stickers shaped like the baby on board sticker, except it said, baby not on board, feel free to just ram right into me. And I thought that was like the most hilarious sticker. If I didn't actually carry our daughter around ever in our car, I would totally put one of those stickers on the back of my car. It was hilarious. And so the person that was driving that thing had a Nissan Cube and had a hilarious sticker. 2 thumbs up in my book. So that was a fun sighting. And thank you so much, Jordan, for the super chat. Getting back to all the other member questions here. So where was I here? Get a drink here. B. Mitchell says, I can't vouch for your state, but when I bought my 13 F-150, it had gap insurance. And when I paid it off early, I got it rebated back. They made enough off the interest. Yeah, I actually had that happen too with one of my Mustangs, where I had the gap insurance, sold it, and then they refunded me, for the difference or whatever. So yeah, if you do that up front, that is certainly something you can get for sure. And Slam Sedan said, what about a turbo 6-cylinder in the Grand National? That would be amazing. Be so cool. He also says, I've only seen 2 Integras and I live in Southern California. That's surprising. I see a lot of Integras around here. I see a few every week at least. There's always just regular, ordinary, like older people typically driving them too. And just, the regular versions, the base ones there. If you look at the sales numbers for them, I think it's surpassed basically most of the other German entry level stuff. I mean, I guess it's not a totally fair fight because it's a little cheaper than most of those as far as actual transaction prices and stuff. But yeah, Integra is doing really well. And Slim Stan also says, I miss the Goodyear blimp from the 90s growing up here in Southern California. Yeah, since it actually shows up every once in a while, maybe once or twice a year for the Steelers games here in Pittsburgh. And so we actually still get to see the Goodyear blimp occasionally, and it's always fun to see from the sky there. Michelle says, have you seen the new Santa Fe's on the road? I saw some in my area, and it's nice looking until the rear end. I actually saw my first one in the wild outside of the drive program, obviously. First one, bought by a customer this past week in a parking lot, and I was like, oh wow, like someone already has one of these, cool. And yeah, I thought it was cool. I actually wanted to get Beth's thoughts on it because I kind of was talking to her about it as like, maybe a potential for us down the road or something if we wanted to, ever ditch the EV thing. And she likes the look of it, but she's like, it actually looks like a little too big whenever she saw it in person. I think that's the one thing that might shock some people is maybe it looks a little smaller in pictures, and then you get up to it and it's like, whoa, this thing's actually really big. So, it is a big vehicle for sure. But I mean, the back end doesn't put me off as much as it does for everybody else, I think. And, styling subjective. We will see if it, grows on people or not. But yeah, I'll be curious to see how sales do for those. And Kyle says, Matt, when do you think Subaru will do a refresh to the WRX? I need the back fixed. I don't know if the back's going to get fixed. I think it might get even worse. I feel like we're going to see, I feel like a wilderness version is almost inevitable at this point. So I would expect the black cladding to just rise even higher up and probably consume the trunk lid and just just take over the entire vehicle at some point. But as far as a refresh for the WRX, it's usually 3 to 4 years for a refresh. So they came out in 2022 as far as model years goes. So I would say maybe look for something in 2025, 2026. But Subaru is also not usually sticking to that kind of a cadence for the WRX. They always are happy to let them kind of simmer here with the past couple of generations. So, we had basically the same styling from 2015 all the way through till 2021. That generation never really got any kind of refresh. So they could really just ride it all the way to 2030, even if they wanted. We'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see some paint on the back bumper, but I think, a lot of people have done it in the aftermarket. It's really not, it seems like it's not that hard to fix. So if you really love everything else about the WRX, I'd say, find yourself a good body shop that can, get that painted, or just even some people, I think there's actually people sell just like body kits of just like a new rear bumper, maybe something like that's worth considering if you love everything else about the car. Because I mean, WRX is pretty good. It's still not my favorite driving thing, but it's hard to argue with 272 horsepower and a manual and all-wheel drive for 30, low 30,000s. It's a really compelling bargain. They really knocked it out of the park with the pricing for those, at least on the lower end. And Raphael says, motorcycle, trike, scooter, moped, I wave at all of them. I just like seeing people ride. That's great that there's that camaraderie there. That's awesome. And glad to see you're enjoying the riding. I don't remember where you said you live, Raphael, but hopefully if you live in a place that has a winter, and hopefully you're enjoying the nicer weather and being able to get out there again now. And let me see. So lost my place again. Trek and Car Guy says, if you go off Pacifica and Voyager sales, Chrysler is fine. Yeah, they do sell a lot. He says also Pacifica comes with a hybrid option. Yeah, and it's amazing that they're still the only plug-in hybrid option in that segment. And Toyota hasn't bothered with that. You would think that they especially would have, and still nothing. So yeah, Pacificas, and I actually see, at least around here, I see a lot of plug-in hybrid Pacificas. So I think that's definitely a good feather in their cap that'll, still gives them an edge that the others don't have. And Luke says, I think the new Nissan Kicks is pretty decent looking. I think they actually did a really good job on the Kicks. I didn't really weigh in too much on my own personal opinions in the weekly update, but I actually was really impressed with the Kicks from a, exterior and interior standpoint. Just from the pictures there, they actually did a really good job. If the pricing is good, which is a really big if, but if they price that well, that thing is going to be a really big hit, I think. If they screw up the pricing, then it's anyone's guess. But if they keep it close to the current gen as far as pricing goes, there's cat hair floating. I think it's going to be really good. So I'm glad to see. I feel like Nissan is kind of starting to get their mojo back a little bit. I'm glad to see all these new Nissan products coming online that I feel like are more competitive and, you know, righting all the wrongs of the past generations and, you know, fixing the things like finally adding all-wheel drive, finally, you know, making it a little nicer and a little more actual SUV like and stuff. I think Nissan's hopefully on the right track. I'm really rooting for them. I want them to do well. Just so they can give us a sick new GTR someday. But you know, hopefully Nissan will continue to climb out of the ashes here. And let me see. Slam Sedan says, Matt, give us your dream car garage, one family vehicle, one weekend vehicle. Between just those, if it was just two vehicles, family vehicle, if there's no limit on price, family vehicle would be Ferrari Purosangue, which I know is ridiculous, but it's 4 seats and it has a V12. Like, that is going to take the cake as the most amazing family vehicle in my mind. Weekend vehicle, I would say would be, I mean, I'd probably just go A12 GTS because I love the convertible thing and the V12 once again. So I'd be a Ferrari garage there if I could afford it. And he says, and so a vehicle and one daily driver. Yeah, I would daily drive either one of those and be smiling from ear to ear and not be worried at all about putting miles on them. So I would be happy to daily drive those as long as I don't have to go to any area where I'd be scared to park it, I guess. So maybe I would have a third car that's just a beater if I ever, need to go into town for a concert or something like that and don't want to park my nice vehicle, out in the open somewhere or something. But other than that, it'd just be 2 Ferraris. And he said, okay, now I see the other budget of for each segment of 70 grand. Okay, well, now you're making it harder on me. 70 grand for each. That's tough because there's stuff like right over 70. If I was able to stretch it to like 80, I'd say use Blackwing, and then used LC 500 convertible probably. But if I gotta stay under 70, I'd probably say nice F-Type. And as far as the family vehicle, I don't know. I'd probably say maybe Audi, but it's not. I'd say Audi RS3, but it's a little small to be like an actual practical family vehicle. I don't know. I'm trying to rack my brain of like what I would actually pick if it were just me. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like a Genesis G80 Sport. I love the way they're so comfortable. It'd be a really nice just daily driver, and those are comfortably under 70, even new. Or maybe right under 70. So I'd say maybe something like that potentially. There's a lot of good stuff that would be, tempting. TLX Type S, things like that. There's a bunch. I'd probably want it to be a sedan though still, because I just love sedans myself. But very interesting question. Thanks, Slam Sedan. And let me see. 2, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, waiting for Matt to shell for GR. Yeah, no Toyota shilling just yet here. We'll see if any of the other questions bring out the Toyota shill today. And thank you again, too, for the super chat. Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, my friend wants to know your thoughts on a 1967 Chevy Impala. Great car, very cool car. I love all the classic, basically anything American in particular from 40s, 50s, 60s. They're all pretty much great in my mind. So 67 Impala sounds awesome. I hope to someday snatch up a bunch of classic cars once the older generation that loves those, can't or doesn't want to drive them anymore or just dies. I'm looking forward to, being one of the like 5 people in my age group that actually likes classic cars and hopefully snatching stuff up for a steal just biding my time here, and hopefully someday I'll be able to have all the awesome classics that I've always wanted. If I can find the space for them, that is. But yeah, 67 Impalas are great. Thanks, Jordan, for the super chat. And let me see. Zachary Jones says, "Hey Matt, my mom's 2015 Kia Sorento has 170,000 miles on it, still going strong. Thoughts?" That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that it's continuing to stay strong, and hopefully it goes a lot longer than that. We'll see. Definitely keep us posted, Zachary. It's always fun to see how long a car can go and how high a car can go in miles. The Mileage Impossible Facebook page is one of my favorite Facebook pages because it's just all these fascinating cars you didn't think would actually go the distance that do. And so glad to hear the Sorrento is holding out well for your mom there. And thanks for joining in, Linda. And Two says, start stacking bodies. Yikes. I don't remember what that was about as far as Two's. Okay, he's talking to Kyle. I gotcha. More basement chatter. And he also says, Zachary says, that the Sorrento's still going strong. It shows how Kia stepped up the reliability and quality in the past 10 years. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I've heard horror stories about some of those vehicles as well, but I've heard a lot of good stories as well. So, it's always anecdotal. Some people have great luck, some people don't, but at least, like a thing I've always said about Hyundai and Kia is they have the long warranty. They put their money where their mouth is. And that's something that, a lot of the other companies, which might even have better reliability, just won't do. And so it's cool that they have that, that support. And Luke says, some features I thought were gimmicks that now I can't live without. Push button start, Android Auto, heated seats, climate control. Yeah, it's, I totally get it. There's a lot of things, and it's a slippery slope, especially, I mean, I guess I make it hard on myself being a car reviewer, but I've even told like my dad, for example, who doesn't have a heated steering wheel, and he's like, "Oh, I have gloves and I'm fine." I'm like, "Yeah, please don't ever try a heated steering wheel, because if you do, you will never want to go back to not having one, and then you will be ruined forever with having to, buy higher end trims or, paying extra money for heated steering wheels. If it's something that goes for anything in life, if you don't feel like you're missing out on it, don't even bother trying, because if you try that thing and then you're missing something that you didn't miss before, it just it's a good way to make yourself miserable. So yeah, it's it's great that a lot of those features have been brought down to lower trims now. Like Toyota offers heated steering wheels for a couple $100 typically, and things like that are a little more obtainable than they used to be. But yeah, push button start is so nice too, not having to dig into your pocket anymore for a key and all that. It's definitely nice touches. The cars are definitely advancing, in my opinion, and going in the right direction with making us all a little happier and more comfortable. As Lamp Sedan says, CX-90 in that burgundy color is so good looking. Yeah, it is a good color. I don't see that many in that color, though, at least around here, but I agree. That is one of my favorite colors. It's really pretty. And Slam Sedan also says, my parents had a 1990 Hyundai Excel. It was a POS, but great adventures growing up and getting stranded. Man, I can relate to the getting stranded thing, because my parents had a 1988 Ford Tempo, and that did the same exact thing of so many times hanging out in the parking lot in the burning sun with no air conditioning, no nothing, and just being like, well, we gotta wait for a tow truck. Yep, definitely remember that. So glad it wasn't exclusive to the Ford, I guess, but sorry to hear that you had the same crappy luck with the XL growing up. And Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, would you prefer a Lamborghini Corvette or a Ferrari? Ferrari, absolutely. Corvettes are really good. The Z06 is, a better Ferrari in some ways. But for me, the V12 is still the king, and I love the V12s in the Ferrari. So that would be my pick. The Lamborghini has the V12s, but I've never, ever since the Murcielago went away, the Aventador and now the Ruelto's V12s just still sound a little artificial to me. I don't know. There's just like a tone to it. Maybe it's just my ears or something, but it has this weird tone that it sounds like it's like a video game V12 and not like an actual real V12, if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks this, and that's fine. But like, people love the Aventador and the Ruelto's engine sound. And I mean, sure, it sounds better than 4-cylinder turbo or something, but like, it's just, to me, I feel like every time I hear that, I'm like, is that Need for Speed or Forza, or is that actually real life? Because it's like, just does not, it just sounds digital to me, and I don't want my V12 to sound digital. So that's the only thing I don't like about the Lamborghinis these days. But Z06 is amazing. I'd love to have one someday, but Ferrari is still king. I am definitely, Toyota was looking for a GR shill, but I would happily be a Ferrari shill, because I definitely think, as far as fanboying goes, Ferrari and Aston Martin are still my top two brands, and I will just basically drool over anything that those companies put out, and pretty much predisposed to liking them unconditionally for the most part. Especially, again, the ones with V12s. Definitely my engine configuration of choice. So thanks, Jordan, for the super chat. And let me see. So where was I? Luke says Honda could make the Element into a Maverick competitor. That'd be a great idea as well. I agree. That would be cool. That's a cool idea, actually, to just give up the SUV thing and just make it a little compact truck. That would be fantastic. That is, yeah. I will have to try and Honda doesn't really invite me to press events anymore, but if I ever get a chance to talk to a Honda PR rep in person, I'll be like, so what about a Maverick competitor? Because I mean, everyone's thinking about a Maverick competitor. Every company wants a Maverick because it's just super hot, and it is something. I think that's why Toyota's seems like they're working on something like that, and other companies, Chevy was, until it seems like they kind of have backpedaled since then. But yeah, an Element, I totally support that. A little thing called the Element that was a Maverick competitor from Honda. That would rock. That would be so cool. That's a great idea, Luke. And Stud Muffin, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, without getting too political, what would you expect to happen to the car market should a Republican win the presidency and fight back against EVs? Would you keep an EV in the family or swap for gas? That's an interesting question. So as far as the car market and what would happen, so and I kind of talked about this in the weekly update yesterday with the emissions regulations stuff changing. Um, you know, there is some flexibility for car companies to change their plans, but you got to keep in mind that car companies are planning out stuff for 7 years or more into the future. It takes years to get the suppliers lined up to obviously do the engineering and the development and all that kind of stuff. Those things typically don't happen in a 4-year time span, so they can't develop cars with a president in mind or a policy in mind or anything like that. And like I think really the best way, I mean, obviously things have changed in the past 4 or 5 years, but I think the best way to predict that at least a little bit is to look back at what happened in the Trump presidency. That was whenever we saw all the EVs coming onto the scene. All the car companies were the ones that were volunteering to go for EVs. All that stuff happened under the Trump presidency. Like, we've had EVs before Biden was in office, and so I think we will continue to have the car companies realize that, one, the US is not the only market they sell to. They need to make stuff that is a global product, and therefore you need to think about other political establishments in other countries and what they're doing. Again, Europe is still clearly going towards the EV thing, even though they have slightly slowed down as well. They are still going towards that. And so you can't just be an isolationist and say, oh, well, the US is throwing their regulations out, so let's just go back to 7-liter V8s and everything and get 15 miles per gallon. There's only going to be so much flexibility there. So I think that you will mostly see more of the same trajectory. I don't think things are going to change too much, even if the EPA gets thrown out and abolished or whatever people are thinking or hoping or fearful of what's going to happen. I mean, however you fall on all that stuff, car companies are still going to do what they're going to do, and they still have their plans. They still have all their stuff lined up for the rest of the 2020s are already pretty much set. Again, there's a little flexibility. Like GM said, they're bringing in plug-in hybrids here from foreign markets that they're going to rush to market here in the States. So if there's other puzzle pieces there that are already, the building blocks are there, you can just kind of swap that in pretty quickly. there's those types of things that can be done, but I don't think that you're going to see wild changes in the car market from a new car sales standpoint. Used car market should be unaffected as well. I don't think there's going to be any change there. And as far as would we keep an EV or switch back to gas? I think that I mean, Beth really likes the EV. I like it. And everything for EV ownership is only going to get better, I think, going forward with more infrastructure, better batteries, better tech. I think if we're happy with our Mach-E already as is, I think we're going to be even happier with, the electric future with, the batteries being better and all that. So to me, it's only going to go up from here for EV ownership. And they'll hopefully get more affordable and stuff. So I think the entire, pie is going to just get sweeter as we go forward there. So I think we're pretty set on sticking with EV. The only thing that would cause us to swap back into gas would be if, for example, our daughter, if she starts to compete in some kind of sports or something where we're doing lots of road trips all the time. Again, if the infrastructure is there and the battery ranges are a lot better, then that's something that, we still could very well keep an EV and it could be totally fine. But if, infrastructure gets stalled out by a new presidency and the companies don't continue on because they have less incentives and less, help from the government money-wise with all that stuff, then that could be a reason why maybe we would switch to a plug-in hybrid or something potentially. Again, but that's assuming that we're doing a lot of highway road trips, which we very rarely do, especially again with all the frequent flyer miles I have from this job. Anywhere that's more than a few hours drive, we're just going to hop on a plane because again, I could just fly us anywhere for free pretty much. So, there's no reason to ever do a road trip. I love road trips. I enjoy them a lot, but, especially with a young kid, if it's easier to just hop on a plane, I'm going to do that anyway. So personally for us, only would be if we're doing road trips for, something our daughter wants to do all the time or something outside of, competing and traveling all the time. I think that we're going to probably stick to an electric thing. The only other wild card I could say is if the social unrest gets more extreme, and EVs start being targets, then that would be the only other safety concern. I don't want Beth to be driving around with a target on her back because she has an EV. If there's some giant culture shift and, every EV hater is running her off the road or something, that would be the only other thing where, as much as I would want to, and keep with the thing that works best for us and that we enjoy the best, like I also want people to, want my family to be safe and all that. So that would be the only other wild card, but hopefully, God forbid, things get that insane in this country. But at this point, anyone's guess. It's certainly not off the table. So, we will see with that whole thing. But she just had someone a couple of weeks ago flip her off while she was sitting in the right-hand lane behind traffic, just minding her own business, and some dude in some giant truck just flipped her off because I'm assuming she was in an EV. Because there was no other reason for them to flip her off. But so there's that kind of stuff. And if that continues to be a common thing, then that might turn her off to EVs a little bit more. So it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, what is worth the harassment if it comes down to that. So that's the only other thing I can say. But otherwise, I think car market wise, I don't think things are going to change as much as a lot of people are hoping they will. Because a lot of people that are hoping for a big switch in November, just don't look back at pre 2020 when all these EVs were already in development and already happening. That was something that happened under that presidency. Thank you so much, Stud Muffin, for the super chat. Hopefully that wasn't too political for you there, but it's an interesting question for sure, because it's something I see a lot of comments saying that, and so it's clearly on a lot of people's minds. But I really don't think things are going to change as much as people are hoping it will. And Trenton Carg, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that, and I'm glad to see so many people were able to get those memberships again. And let me see. So, where was I? Artichoke says a Ford Flex might be popular today. I think the Santa Fe is the modern Ford Flex. It is absolutely a Ford Flex that Ford just didn't stick with. pretty much. And maybe Ford will bring it back if the Santa Fe is a giant runaway hit. But yeah, and it looks so much like it too. It is, honest to God, like the the absolute reincarnation of a Ford Flex, and I love it. Trent Carga says, and people thought I was crazy to buy a wagon. Wagons are awesome. You are definitely not crazy, and I wish more people would buy wagons, as every auto journalist wishes. Mike says, what OEM EVs are you not excited for? I'm not excited for the Cybertruck. I guess that's already here, so that's not like a future thing really, but not excited for that. What else am I not excited for? I don't know. There's nothing, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's like a bad idea outside of, again, like the Prologue, like I said, in the Acura ZDX, just probably not having the best execution in my opinion. So I'm not really excited about those. Trying to think of any others. That's about it. I don't know. I mean, I'm a little pessimistic that Subaru's EVs are going to be compelling whenever those start showing up here in a couple of years. Just again, based on what we've seen from Solterra and BZ4X, maybe there will be better, but Subaru's just had a lot of head scratching choices in the past few years. So, I'm not overly optimistic about their electric vehicles, but I'm going to keep an open mind and hope for the best. Because I mean, clearly they are still on a pretty good sales streak, so they know what they're doing. But I'm just curious to see what Subaru becomes as they go into the electric age here in a few years. Let me see. Luke says, forgot adaptive cruise control on my list of features. Yeah, adaptive cruise is very nice to have. That's something the Bullet doesn't have, and I don't really miss it that much when I don't have it, but it is certainly nice. I think sometimes adaptive cruise, though, ends up annoying me more than it helps me personally. Maybe that's just me wanting more control and just wanting to do it myself. But typically, even in cars that have adaptive cruise, like the press vehicles, a lot of times I just don't bother with it. To be totally honest, I just like driving myself. But it's certainly nice when it's a good system, or if it's like Super Cruise. Like, I'm obsessed with Super Cruise, and I will put that on at every chance that I get, because it's just so cool to see it just doing lane changes automatically and intelligently moving over into the lane, to get out of the way of other vehicles and stuff. It's pretty brilliant. Let me see. Brian says, welcome to the basement. And Luke says, Huracan sounds great. I get what you're saying about Aventador. I agree. Huracan does sound very good. That V10 is magic, and I'll be sad to see that motor go away. I wish they would have just put hybridization, like a plug-in hybrid with that V10 still, like they did with Ruelto, with V12 and plug-in hybrid. I don't know why they didn't just do that with Huracan versus, it sounds like it's going to get a twin turbo V8 now. I feel like it's going to really lessen the appeal of the Huracan, or whatever the new thing's called, down the road here, because that V10 is just brilliant for sure. Tom, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, since you review a wide variety of vehicles, do you ever have trouble readjusting to your own cars? And has there ever been a vehicle that had the biggest learning curve to drive? So as far as adjusting, the only thing adjustment-wise that I often have to adjust for is manual transmissions and clutch points, the catch point. That often throws me off if I've had a week in a Civic Type R or a week in a Miata or something, and then I go into the Bullet, I end up driving it like I forgot how to drive manual or something, because I'm like, oh yeah, like crap, because you're over a week, your muscle memory in your left leg, it really gets adapted pretty quickly, to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, like this is where I pull out my, where the clutch catch point is for this Honda or whatever. And I'm like, oh wait, I'm in that Bullet now. I'm bucking around and embarrassing myself badly. So that's definitely one little adjustment thing. Otherwise, I mean, there are some times where I'm in a Miata and then I have to go drive the Bullet or something. I'm like, whoa, like I'm in a giant vehicle now, or if I'm hopping from a giant truck or SUV and then I go into the Bullet and I'm like, oh yeah, like I can park easily again. This is nice. Things like that, are the only adjustments really. I'd say the manual is the biggest. And as far as, has there ever been a vehicle that had the biggest learning curve to drive? I don't know. I feel like there hasn't been anything in modern times that had a pretty tough learning curve. So yeah, I don't think there's really been anything recently as far as used stuff and older stuff. There's some quirky things that had a learning curve to them. A lot of the old stuff, like classics, they're all quirky and all have learning curves because they all have their own quirks and weird things as far as how you need to baby them. And I illustrated this with, like, whenever I did my 68 Charger or 68 Super B Scat Pack review, and that thing was really a hard manual to drive, and that was really tough to drive smoothly. That was a that was a tough one. And then even like the learning curve of like driving a 3 on the tree manual for the first time in the 57 Ford Ranchero review that I did, believe that was 2019. That was another one where I had never driven 3 on the tree manual until that day, and then they're like, okay, now you're driving across Texas in this 57 Ford in the pouring rain, and you got to try and film a review and say intelligent things while doing all that new stuff. And that was a challenge, but I loved it. And I actually got the hang of it pretty quickly. But that was, as far as learning curves goes, learning a new type of manual transmission immediately, like in a few minutes, with no prep at all, aside from just knowing the mechanics of how to actually use it. But that was really the only one. Even older still was like, I drove the right-hand drive R32 Nissan GTR many years ago, and that shifting with your left hand was a little bit of an adjustment period for sure. So I've had some in the past with some of the older classics and some of the more out of the ordinary cars, but as far as new stuff, there's really no learning curve, in my opinion, for most new stuff, at least as far as the main stuff. Little quirks and extracting the most out of a car, obviously there's some stuff there, but as far as just driving to the store and back, I feel like there's really not much of a learning curve for most stuff. I'd say maybe the only one that was like a little bit more of a shock factor in recent times was the Hummer EV, because that 4-wheel steering system is really aggressive, and it was like, whoa, like I can't like be that aggressive with the steering because this thing will just like turn on a dime. And that was, so that's it. Yeah, Hummer EV is probably the biggest learning curve as far as new cars in the past couple of years. And even that I learned really fast. It's just like you have to readjust like how something this massive should drive, and it's just completely flips your perceptions on its head pretty much. Thank you so much, Tom, for the super chat there. And thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, Matt, what car would you rather buy? GTI, Golf R, GR Corolla, Mini S, GR Corolla, STI, Fiesta ST, GR Corolla, MX-5, GR Corolla, FYI, Daddy Toyota is watching. Yep. You know me very well too. Out of all those cars, it would be the GR Corolla. If I didn't need back seats, though, I would say MX-5 actually. But outside of that, GR Corolla for sure. Thank you too for the super chat. And let me see. Getting back to the member questions here. Slam Sedan says Aston Martin DBX is nuts. Yeah, DBX is great. I think those are really cool, and I'm excited to see. It sounds like they're going to hopefully get that new interior pretty soon, and that'll be a nice improvement as well. And Slam Sedan says, Matt, are you like me and have cars saved on Car Gurus just in case you win the lottery? I don't have anything saved on Car Gurus. I do have my running list of like my lottery dream car list of stuff that I would buy. I don't have enough free time to go and look on the member classifieds. Every once in a while, when I'm really feeling silly, I'll go on DuPont Registry and be like, I wonder what the used Chiron market is like, and I'll just look for Bugattis on there and just see what's out there for those. But outside of that, I don't really actively search for my dream cars as far as actual listings goes. But if I had more time on my hands, that is totally something I would do. So I'm right there with you, Slam Sedan. And I mean, man, best of luck to all of us if anybody plays the lottery. It's what, 1.1 billion here for the one, and 800 million I think for the other one here for this this week. So I'd love to see. I feel like, random tangent, but I feel like whenever people win the lottery, it's always the most boring thing. It's always like people that are like, well, I guess I'll like pay off my truck, and maybe I'll like pay off my house and put aside some money for retirement, and like they've won like hundreds of millions of dollars. They have no good plans. I'm like, why is it the people that like win these things like just it seems like the money just ends up getting inherited by people who actually might have fun with it in 20 years or something. But like I never see anyone like wins a lottery and like does go buy like their dream car wish list, or if they do, they're really subtle about it. But like, there's it's I'd love to see someone like win the lottery and then like have them like start a YouTube vlogging channel. Like, here's all the crazy crap I'm doing now because I'm a billionaire or whatever. Like, that would be so fun. And instead, it's always just like, people just, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a privacy and a safety and security thing. And I'd probably, try and go low profile if something like that actually happened to me as well. But it'd be fun to see someone actually just like live it up for all the world to see, and all that it'd be fun. But yes, if you see a bunch of crazy car purchases, a bunch of your car gurus listings dropping off the map, chances are it's just me buying all my lottery dream cars, because it sounds like me and you have very similar car tastes, slam sedan. So that's fun. I've never that's a fun idea. I'll have to, maybe someday if I have some time, I'll start shopping for my dream cars just to waste some time. And Luke says, I saw a Cybertruck for the first time, so I assume they'll start popping up everywhere. Nice. Yeah, I have yet to see one still. I'm not complaining, but I have not seen one. There are a couple in Pittsburgh I know of, but haven't seen them myself. Which is actually kind of surprising because I do live in an area of Pittsburgh where there are a lot of EV buyers and people that have expensive stuff, but haven't seen them. And let me see. Luco says, I saw a Cybertruck in King of Prussia, PA last week on my way to do a delivery. It was so strange looking in person. That's what I have heard, but seems like it's still taking everyone by storm. And two, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, if I win the lotto, no one would know. The basement would be fancier. Yeah, that is true. You could just pimp it out, and you could just dig deeper. If you have hundreds of millions, you just make a whole palace underground. And let me see. Luke says, I know the Lexus Adaptive is not that good, especially the sudden braking is a little nerve wracking. Yeah, there's some companies that still just kind of struggle with the smoothness. I think a lot of companies have gotten pretty good, but like I've complained a lot about the Hyundai and Kia system of that one just not being trustworthy and going over the lines, and just driving like a drunk driver, honestly, half the time, in my opinion. Excuse me. I hope that gets better, but there's definitely some out there that aren't the best. Luke also says, I bought a driving simulator and had to sell it because it literally made me forget how to drive manual every time I would play with it. Wow, that's crazy. Another thing, if I had free time and spare money to throw around, I'd love to do like a legit racing simulator kind of setup. That'd be really cool. And I see all these people on Instagram that do those. What is that one game where it like super realistic and people have modded it and stuff, so it looks like they're just like tearing up the streets in real life, but they're not. It's just a video game. I can't remember what the name of that game is, but it'd be fun to just play around. And I even missed like Forza Horizon and stuff. I really want to play Gran Turismo 7. I don't even have a PlayStation to play it on, but just things I don't have time for anymore. But I'm starting to get sentimental for like 90s stuff, and so like Gran Turismo was like the thing that I became a car enthusiast on pretty much back in the 90s. So like I really have a strong pull to get back into playing Gran Turismo, but just again, no time, and also no PS5. And Daniel says, whatever happened to the Automotive Video Awards? It's still kind of a thing. They were talking a few months back about maybe trying to do a new event with all of us in the AVA. For those that are familiar with that whole thing, it was a bunch of us that were just car reviewers that just got together for a weekend and had a bunch of press cars, and we just took turns reviewing all of them pretty much, and then crowned a winner for SUV and car. So we'd like to get back to doing it. I think for a lot of us though, we've all just have so even busier schedules than we had even a few years ago. I think a lot of that is down to the fact that a few years ago when we were doing those, car shows were still a thing for the most part. And there weren't all these micro trips for reveals. That wasn't a thing until the early pre-COVID or post-COVID times of once the car shows really died off with COVID and didn't come back, it was like everyone was doing these like, hey, fly all the way to California just for an hour to film this car, and it's like, man, like that just because it's so much more time and effort, and so I think that's kind of crammed a lot of the car reviewer schedules, just even more, because now it's like we're not just flying across the country to drive it, but we're actually having to fly again to see it once, and then it's a lot of extra legwork there, so I think there's some of that too that prevents it. But we're trying to get back to doing it again if we can find a set of cars that makes sense for all of us, that would be worthwhile for all of us to fly there on our own dime and do that. So like for me, I told them like, look, if it's gonna be a bunch of EVs, I'm like, no one's gonna watch them, and me spending $800 on a flight, I'll probably never make that back on the reviews, just because it's like no one's gonna watch those videos. So it's just gonna have to be the right cars, and if we can line up the right cars for all of us that work for all of us, then maybe that's something we'll try and do. But it doesn't seem like there's a ton of interest from everyone else to do that again anyway, aside from casual conversation about it. So I feel like that's probably going to stay in the past, most likely, if I had to bet. But I'd love to see it come back. Daniel also says, how would you compare the Lexus 5.0 to the Coyote 5.0? I'd say they're both pretty similar as far as reliability goes. I'd say that the Coyote motor just has a little more character because it's a little higher revving. You can get it with a manual. And it's just more powerful. It's faster. It feels like it pulls harder in the upper end. The Lexus is kind of a more traditional V8 where it's just pretty meaty, in the mid-range and stuff. And it has a nice top end to it, but the Coyote is definitely sweeter, definitely pulls harder all the way to $7,000 and even slightly beyond that. And it is just, it's still such a good motor. It's such a good motor. I love that car. The Bullet I'm really starting to think hard about getting rid of the Bullet. It's something that seems increasingly likely to happen, but man, if I do, I'm gonna really miss that Coyote motor because it is magical, and to me at least is better than the Lexus motor, just from a specialness standpoint. It's just, yeah, it's a really good motor. But they're both good. I love the induction note in the Lexus 5.0 as well. It's amazing. You can go watch my LC500 convertible review or any of the other V8 Lexus models, but especially in the convertible where you could really hear it more, and it crackled and popped in that even. I was just in bliss with that vehicle. So yeah, that's a great motor too, for sure. But Coyote's a little more special in my opinion. And Trunk Car Guy says 2 could give Kyle his own dedicated area to play raid. That's true. Yeah, hopefully 2 wins the lottery for him and for Kyle. And 2 says still tied to the radiator though. Well, I don't know. Maybe maybe you can upgrade your radiator or something if you're a millionaire. Luke also says, I'm sure you could get a sponsor for that. Assetto Corsa, probably. That's it. Yes, thank you for the name there. Yeah, that is the game. It seems really fun. I've never played it, but it seems pretty cool. As far as a sponsor, yeah, maybe I could. I'm not very good about selling myself to sponsors, and like pitching myself. Usually I just wait for sponsors to come to me because I don't have time to figure out who to email and how to make that kind of stuff happen. So I'm usually not motivated enough to make that happen. But maybe if I find myself with more free time in the future, that could be something I could pursue because it could be fun. And maybe it'd be fun new way to live stream here as well of me driving poorly in a racing simulator or something. And Luke says, I have some questionable bumper stickers on my '07 Accord. Hopefully you have editing software that can blur them during the video review. It's a real pain to edit that kind of stuff, to blur things like that. So I might just be selective in the angles that I use if I film your Accord here this coming week, Luke. But I'll make it work. It's all good. I'll be curious to see your bumper stickers there. And let me see. So Luke says, I'm really considering getting rid of my 18 GT, but going to miss the daily red line runs though. Yeah, that would be what I would miss too. Honestly, I don't even take mine to red line that often. But when I do, it still gives me the fizz for sure. And let me see. So um, Akara says, not sure if you already addressed this, but what are your thoughts about Stellantis laying off the 400 salary workers? Someone actually did ask that in a member question here. I think Jordan asked that earlier. So I won't rehash that, but I don't know enough about the details of that to weigh in intelligently on how that will affect the company and whether that's, a good thing or a bad thing. I would lean towards that being a bad thing, but, maybe that's just they have a lot of waste and a lot of overlap with Stellantis and it's just dead weight. That they're cutting back, but with the way corporations work, most likely I'm sure it's just them spreading the current workers even thinner and making it a little less pleasant for everyone. But who knows? I don't know the details, so I can't really say. But honestly, I didn't even hear about that until this live stream, so I'm out of the loop a little more than I guess some of you are because I didn't even hear about that. And Ryan says, since I'm 6'2", I prefer something that's comfortable enough for a tall driver. Does that rule out the GR86, BRZ, and Miata? Miata, possibly. It depends on your body type too, because some people over 6 feet tall, it depends on how big your torso is and how long your legs are. And so I would just sit in a Miata still just to see how you fit. It shouldn't be too hard to find a Mazda dealer that lets you sit in a Miata, or even use any ND Miata should be very easy to hunt down and sit in one just to see. GR86 and BRZ, I think you should be good. I believe taller people seem to not have any issues. I think the guys from Everyday Driver, the one, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's a big guy and he loved the GR86. I'm pretty sure he's even over 6'2" from my memory of meeting him and talking to them in person. So you might want to check out their channel too, Everyday Driver. They did a great long-term series on their GR86, but I feel like those cars are definitely going to be safe in from a height standpoint. Miata might be, a little tighter. Miata just has less room in general. So from a livability standpoint, if it's between Miata and the GR86 BRZ, the GR86 and BRZ are going to be the more livable, easier to deal with cars on a regular basis. You have, storage bins and, a bigger trunk and a back seat you can throw stuff in, but you don't have any of that stuff in the Miata, So Miata's a tough car to live with on a daily basis if you keep stuff in your car or carry anything larger than a cell phone. It's going to be a little bit tougher in the Miata, but Miatas are magical, and I think if you're willing to live with the restrictions the Miata imposes, I think it's definitely the way to go. D-Town Greatest says they didn't lay us off, they fired us. Okay, so if you're one of the 400, I'd be curious if you have any inside info you'd like to share publicly, if you're allowed to or whatever. I would love to get some extra insight for those that are curious here about that, about what's going on there behind the scenes at Stellantis, because again, I haven't heard about this until this live stream tonight, so I'm out of the loop. Let me see. Luke says, I know Autovlog was barely able to fit in the Miata RF. So Miata is probably going to be tough. I'd say GR86 BRZ are the better bets for tall people. Daniel, thanks for chiming in. Also said, I'm 6'2" and had a Miata as a rental. It was miserable with the roof up. Well, there you go. So, thank you, Daniel. That's great. I'm so glad we have such a great community in here. Everyone able to give much better advice than I can as well. So thanks, Daniel. And there you have it, Ryan. I say GR86 BRZ is the way to go. And he says, good night, time to go get tied up. Man, I hope you can break free from a radiator someday too. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, 2001, ExxonMobil was pushing commercials of biofuel enhancements such as algae. Was it just a gimmick? It could have been a gimmick. And also, all these companies are always experimenting with new things. And I actually asked Shell this whenever I was at SEMA back in the fall. I was like, are you guys working hard on e-fuels? Or, what are your thoughts on, all these alternative things? And they said, obviously they just have their canned company responses, but, they were basically just like, we're exploring everything. They're a big enough company, all these oil companies, they are big enough that they can explore every avenue and try to find the best way forward. Obviously, there is behind the scenes, concessions that have to be made and reasons why maybe some stuff doesn't come to fruition that maybe you should or could. But I think that they were always trying to work to make gas better, and so I would assume that the good stuff does end up coming out, and the bad ideas just stay on the cutting room floor there. So I'm guessing that's the case for things such as algae and other biofuel stuff, but I don't know. It's a good question, and yeah, we will see if anyone does any new advancements. I know the e-fuels thing is something that Porsche is working on and others, but even they have said, that's not going to save gas engines. That's just to keep the existing stuff working and around, in a zero emissions kind of world in the future. So we'll see how that all develops and plays out. Austin says he thinks biofuel is probably too expensive to be viable. There's probably some of that as well. Maybe there will be technological advancements that'll bring the cost of that stuff down someday, though, or maybe not. Who knows? I think it's probably just going to be one of those things that as we go into the EV transition, a lot of that gas stuff, there will still be maybe innovations, but maybe not as fast or as much investment, put into that kind of development stuff down the road. So, I'm not expecting any kind of major breakthroughs, but who knows? We'll see. And D-Town says, I can't until the 31st, but I will, trust me. Okay, so he can't talk about Stellantis stuff, but yeah, feel free to share your story. I would love to hear, what's going on there. And sorry that it sounds like they didn't give you a good experience there. They just straight up fired you without any warning. So that sucks for sure. And I feel bad, D-Town. Hope that everything works out for you and for all those others that were abruptly laid off. Or fired. That is really strange. So thanks for chiming in with your perspective there that you can give us, at least for now, and looking forward to hearing more. And best of luck with finding something new in the future too. And two, thank you so much for our super chat. Says, because two is always saying bye too early. Non-car question: Goku or Vegeta? Rip to I don't know any of those. I'm sorry. I don't follow any of that stuff. So I don't even know how to correctly pronounce those words. I'm sorry. So yeah, I can't give you any kind of intelligent response. But thank you too for the super chat. And I see Luke, I will end with his question. He says, would you choose a GT350 non-R C7Z51 or 1LE Camaro? I'd go GT350 personally. It's just a more magical experience with that motor. Is really, really magical. C7 is great. 1LE Camaro is great. They're just less special in my opinion. If I had to choose a runner-up, I'd probably say C7 if you don't care about safety, Camaro if you do, because Camaro did better in crash tests. But aside, I feel like hardly anyone cares about that other than me. So that aside, I'd say C7 is the runner-up. But GT350 is just magical for sure. And Trunk Car Guys filled me in on the anime lore there. And it says, have a good week, everyone. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining on the live stream here. I really appreciate all the great conversation. Hope you guys had a great time here like I did. I hope you have a great week as well. This week, I'm going to have some interesting car reviews I'll be working on here, hopefully. And yeah, stay tuned. I may even have one or two other out of the ordinary videos. This week's kind of in flux, but I'm going to have a lot of new press car stuff starting up here. I'm going to have the new Lyric all-wheel drive coming in here this week, and I'll be starting up my press cars once again. I haven't had press cars in a couple of months, so it's been the biggest gap I've had since I started doing press cars, I think, honestly. So it'll be interesting getting back into press cars, and I got some really fun stuff lined up here. It's going to be a really fun spring, and even into the early summer, I already know some of the stuff coming. It's going to be a really fun next few months here, I think, for the reviews. So stay tuned for all that. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys next weekend. By the way, last little thing, next weekend, since it is Easter here, I may still do Sunday night. I'll have to see. Maybe I'll ask on the weekly update on Friday what everyone thinks and decide from there. But if you have any quick question or any quick feedback here on that now, but I feel like, usually that Easter Sunday is more of everyone's with family and stuff. So I may just end up doing Saturday next week for the live stream if that works for everyone. But anyway, Austin says, say hi to Beth for us, man. Will do. And yeah, thank you all so much for joining in and watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.